Hey everybody, it's Retro DM Ray back with you with another episode of Basic D&D BX Moldvay Cook to talk with you today about another subject and to go through a few more pages in the book together. Today's title is going to be Perhaps Unnecessarily Complex. And here's where I'm going with today's episode. While it is that we need to continue to make D&D more and more complex. Tabletop role-playing games in general. Why do we need to make them more and more complex? Or why are we constantly needing more and more complex role-playing gaming systems? I would argue that even way back in the beginnings of D&D, there's always been those gamers who wanted more crunch, is today's buzzword. More and more metagaming was sort of always part of D&D, but it seems with the advent of more and more PC and video system gaming folks, this meta and this crunch seems to be winning more and more popularity, as opposed to just enough rules to play, but not too much to overshadow the tales that you tell. Now, I'm not saying that you cannot tell great stories and have a good time within this crunch or this meta-style gaming. The gaming that just like as if you're gaming on a video game screen. But to me, and others like me obviously, as is testified by my channel and others much better than mine that prove this out, that many of us long for something purer, sweeter, and I would argue, in my personal opinion, better in relation to storytelling and play and, well, tabletop role-playing games in general. Prefer this style of game, this older style of game where, like Moldvay said, I said in a couple of videos back, it is rulings over rules. And I'll give you an example of that. If you watch the NFL at all, or if you watch NASCAR at all, just the two sports that I happen to love that I watch fairly regularly, you'll notice that over the years in the NFL, as you give more and more options, you need more and more rules. More and more televising of games needs more and more rules, more and more referees, more and more cameras, taking longer and longer to play and figure out who caught what and who didn't catch what and all those other things, or who passed whom on the track, who got out of the pits faster, who got enough points so that they could finally win the championship at the end of the race. All of that kind of stuff, that happens from the fact that you want a more and more complex system, which then requires more and more rules, which requires more and more writing, more and more voluminous volumes of material, more and more multiple page core rule books or players' handbooks and dungeon masters' guides and all of those kinds of things. And for me, I long for less rules and more rulings. I long for less complex, and I long for more ease of entry and ease of play in terms of freedom that's enjoyed by a limited selection but unlimited imagination. I'll say that again. Freedom can be enjoyed by having a limited selection but then unlimited imagining. Again, I'm not saying that you can't have fun and you can't imagine in those other systems. And if you can, then do it and have a very awesome time doing so for your game. But there's such a beautiful elegance in what I'm talking about in this video, simplicity. Moldvay Basic and Cook Expert are just that, in my personal opinion. It's simplicity. So I'm going to take a look at Moldvay again today and see this simplicity at work. And we're just going to take a look at it and you for yourself compare it to other schools of thought, other systems that are out there. And honestly, this subject is a bit involved, so I want you to bear with me for a second. Okay, so thanks again. So if you've got a copy of Moldvay Basic or BX handy, get it out, follow along. We are on pages B20 through B22. And I'm just going to read through a few things today to show you this simplicity or this simple elegance at work. First things first. When you take a look at Pathfinder 2e calls it bulk, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons calls it encumbrance or carrying capacity. and all the way back even to first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, honestly, this was kind of a mess. First edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was all over the place about how this worked. Many of the rules were not even in the player's handbook for the players to understand. Second edition didn't do a whole lot better, but cleaned up a few things, and just the editions have just kind of progressed in that direction and not really gotten a whole lot better, in my opinion. Although 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons has shrunk down the descriptions dramatically, it's still kind of a problem. I don't think it works in the ways that I would like to play, which is verisimilitude or suspension of disbelief, trying to make sure that you understand that you're immersed in the game with your character, and it kind of needs to make sense that you're not carrying 5 backpacks and 3 staves and 7 spears and 2 longbows, one of which is magical, and 3 swords and 12 daggers, those kinds of things. So here's what it says in Moldvay Basic about the encumbrance idea. First of all, it says at the top of the page, encumbrance, and in parentheses it says optional. So you don't even have to use it if it doesn't fit your game. And it says a person can only carry a limited amount of weight before being overloaded and unable to move. In D&D rules, weight is measured in coins rather than pounds, since all coins are equal in weight and coins are the most common treasures. 10 coins weigh 1 pound. Encumbrance, a combination of weight and bulk, will affect movement rates for characters. Characters' movement rates are slowed by carrying excessive amounts of treasure and equipment, and by the different types of armor they wear. The encumbrances of the types of armor do not exactly match the coin weights, but when the encumbrance of the character's weapons, shield, and gear are added, the encumbrances are about equal to these weights. Notice he's being very arbitrary and very vague here for a particular reason. They're about equal. Let's not fuss about that. It's a combination of weight and bulk, and it's going to affect your movement rate. There's no fussing with just a massive amount of tables and numbers for that. The DM's going to need to determine the encumbrance of other items that characters might want to carry, such as a wounded character, and should compare this to the total coin weights given on the table to determine the character's movement rates. That table being the rest of page B20 there, specifically under these paragraphs. Characters carrying more than 1,600 coins of weight are overloaded and unable to move. Now, I have to tell you, another system that I play, Pathfinder 2e, I'm not knocking that. If you love that, that's great. It takes pages and pages, and if you go on the back of the core rulebook, it's all over the place as to how to even find anything in the first place. But if you do that, you go to the back of there and you look it up, and this idea of bulk is all over trying to figure all of this out and calculate it down on your sheet. You need to be a math whiz, in my opinion, to be able to do some of that stuff, and I don't really play too much like that because it's just crazy. 5th edition's a little bit better, but still I don't go into that much stuff either. This is really simple. It's really elegant because it's so simple. It's all contained in this one page. Here's another example. This is on light on page B21. Most dungeons are dark, and it's necessary for characters to bring their own light source with them. A torch or lantern will cast light 30 feet in all directions. A torch will burn out in 6 turns, 1 hour. A lantern filled with 1 flask of oil will burn out in 24 turns, 4 hours. It is important to remember which characters are carrying light sources. A character could not, for example, carry a lit torch, a drawn sword, and a shield at the same time. How many times does that come up in your games, Dungeon Masters, where characters are trying to do all that kind of stuff, right? And next under light is infravision. Infravision is the ability to see heat patterns. Most living things give off heat. To infravision, warm things are bright, cool things are gray, and cold things are black. Infravision is useless in normal or magical light. Infravision cannot be used to read without light. All non-human monsters have infravision. Now in 5th edition, I have to tell you, you can coagulate or put together all these various different things that talk about different vision sources and have multiple paragraphs to figure that out. You can go to Pathfinder 2e and have multiple upon multiple paragraphs to try to figure this all out. And then in Pathfinder 2, you don't even know how far you can see that. That's an arbitrary number. And in here, it's just very simple. It's very elegant. Light messes it up. You can't read with infravision. You see heat patterns. All monsters have it. Done. Doors is another example. Normal doors. Doors in a dungeon are usually closed and are often stuck or locked. A lock must usually be picked by a thief. An unlocked door must be forced open to pass through it. To force open a door, roll 1d6. A result of 1 or 2 on a d6 means that the door is forced open. The roll should be adjusted by a character strength score adjustment. The number needed to open a door can never be less than 1 nor greater than 1 to 5. Once a door is opened, it will usually swing shut when released unless it is spiked or wedged open. I love the fact that this whole system expected that when you would go in the dungeon, things worked in a way such that you had to use the supplies, and it was important for you to gather and carry supplies. I don't know how many times I've ran where I ask my party members, what do you have? What are your supplies? What do you have with you? What do you want to do with those things? And they turn their sheet over and they have practically nothing other than the items to do combat. And that's a recurring thing that's happened in Dungeons and Dragons over the years. And if you play a game like that, that's nothing wrong with that. I just prefer a game that has a little more realism built in, and characters have a little more preparation when they're going into places to make it feel a little bit more real. It says doors will usually open automatically for monsters. I like that. It's like they have their own automatic garage door opener, right? Or their own I-beam that they break to get to you. I love that. Unless the door is held, spiked, or closed with magical spells. Secret doors. A secret door is any door that is hidden or concealed. Any door that's hidden or concealed is a secret door. It's not a crazy amount of information that you need to determine whether it's secret or concealed or hidden or all these other categories from other systems, right? A secret door usually does not look like a door. It may be a sliding panel or hidden under a rug. Any character has a 1 in 6 chance of finding a secret door. It doesn't take special actions to do that. You just say you're going to be looking for secret doors, and you have a 1 in 6 chance to try to find one. And any elf has a 2 in 6 chance. The DM should only check for finding a secret door if a player says that the character is searching for one, and searching for one in the correct area. The search takes 1 turn. Each character has only 1 chance to find each secret door. That's it. It's 1 paragraph. It's very small. Again, other systems make that a little more difficult, depending on the system. I don't believe that's necessary. Listening. A character may try to listen at a door to hear what is on the other side. For each character listening, the DM should roll 1d6. A result of 1, or 1 to 2 for demi-humans, means that the character hears any noises being made by the creatures on the other side of the door, if any. Each character may only try once per door. These have special chances to hear noise. See page B8. The undead do not make any noise. Now, this comes to something that very briefly here I'm just going to touch on. When I ran this BX system, and I think Bandit on Bandit's Keep says that he ran it the same way, if you have a thief in the party, they specialize in doing unique things that the other characters in the party that aren't thieves might not be able to do. So, for example, if you go to that same door and you listen as a party member, you have that chance that Moldvay says here, that 1 in 6 or 1 to 2 in 6 if you're a demi-human. But if you're a thief, you're something special. So what I would do is I would let them roll just like the regular party members could roll. If they heard something, great. If they didn't, the thief would get up there and really put his ear and really listening with his training, and he got another roll using his percentile from his thief skill. I think that made that thief kind of an extra special thing that they can do. I think as far as that, I think I might stop there for now on reading my pages, and I'm just going to go back and talk a little bit about something else that you see a lot today. You see a lot of, in the other systems, you see a lot of addendums, a lot of what's called errata, and stuff coming out. Now, first of all, errata is actually just simply a word that means fixing grammatical and spelling errors or omissions in documents. It's not meta-fan injected discussions that break apart or redesign the rules or tweak the system or add this or shoulda, coulda, woulda things into the systems and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that type of discussion, but errata doesn't mean that. In any of these other systems, I think it tends to come down to that. I remember an old book, Unearthed Arcana, and now I see that Unearthed Arcana in 5th edition for years now has been a way to tweak and add and adjust and change things, and it's not exactly errata. That's fine if you play that way. That's cool. Basic and Expert didn't need that kind of a mess of stuff. Although I think there were some printing errors that were fixed. I didn't look too deeply into the document, but for the most part, that was really all that was for. So I just also want to say that I played Advanced 1st Edition Dungeons & Dragons right on the heels of Basic and Expert. And I have to tell you, Advanced 1st Edition Dungeons & Dragons, if you've looked at the Dungeon Master's Guide and Player's Handbook and stuff, they're a mess. They're hard to find stuff too. So that's still a problem as well. And we played it, and my dungeon master was good about going through that, and our players would read it over and over and over until we finally figured it out as well. I get that, and you can do that with 5th edition. You can do that with 2nd edition or 3.0 or 3.5 or 4th edition or Pathfinder or Pathfinder 2e. You can do that for all those systems. That's fine. But interestingly, I Googled Tim Kask some time back, and I saw a video of him where he describes one of his first conversations with Gary Gygax, the creator, along with Dave Arneson of D&D, and you'll discover that even the creator of our game himself let Tim, when he called him for the first time on the phone, actually explain to him what happened into his game system and share how he ruled it at the time. And Tim says this is what Gary said to him on the phone. This is Gary Gygax, the man that put together this crazy 1st edition Dungeon Master's Guide that's just hard to find anything in and try to figure all this stuff without just having like a little degree in Dungeons and Dragons, if you will, to go through that. He said this. He said, sounds like I couldn't have ruled it any better myself. I like that. That's pretty cool. Now, of course, it's cool you could call Gary back in the day and he would actually answer your questions on the phone, right? And that's what Tim says too. But Gary even goes on to say something else in the Dungeon Master's Guide in 1st edition. It's on page 30. I'll read it to you. It says, "It's the spirit of the game, not the letter of the rules, which is important. Never hold to the letter written, nor allow some barracks room lawyer to force quotations from the rulebook upon you, if it goes against the obvious intent of the game. As you hew the line with respect to conformity to major systems and uniformity of play in general, also be certain the game is mastered by you and not by your players. Within the broad parameters given in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons volumes, you are creator and final arbiter. By ordering things as they should be, the game as a whole first, your campaign next, and your participants thereafter, you will be playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons as it was meant to be. May you find as much pleasure in so doing as the rest of us do." Gary Gygax, 1st edition, Advanced D&D, Dungeon Master's Guide, page 230. So you get what he's saying, right? He's saying rulings over rules and play at the level that's perhaps different from today, for sure, in many games, from what I see just in the systems and that I've ran them. If it doesn't work for that in your game, cool, that's awesome. Play what you want to play in the way you want to play it, have the most fun with your friends, and that's totally cool. But the systems I see designed today are so unnecessarily complex because they've had to respond and do all of these crazy extra things and offer all of these other what you would call choices, quote unquote. All this plethora of choice, if you will, that you have to have rulings about anything and everything, like as if you cannot trust your dungeon master to be able to run the game for you without having to refer to large tomes and manuals and lines of text to run an enjoyable game for you. It's almost like as if the players need to have their own, hey, wait, this is what this says, you didn't run that correctly kind of approach, and I don't think that's good for the game. I just don't. I believe that if you look into the 1st edition Dungeon Master's Guide, you'll also see some other things that Gary said, and he was being sarcastic and snide in his joking when he said that if you're a player and you look into this book, then may you be damned, and or whatever, however he says that, may you be ejected from the game, you're never supposed to look at this, you're a wretched being, or I forget how he says that, but he was being sarcastic, he was being silly there. He said that more than one time. But I think he did that for a reason too, to kind of get at the idea that if the players look at this information that's the Dungeon Master's purview only, then it gives them a level of meta-knowledge that then kind of naturally our brain is drawn towards wanting to argue and state our case, or make our case, rather than just go and play the game with the flow in which it's going to go. And then at the end, if you want to go back and take a look at that and talk with your dungeon master and make some other decision the next time, great. And I'm not honestly even sure that that's really necessary either, unless it was something egregious, but that's up to you and your game. And today I feel like that I hear many saying that I can't possibly play without knowing all of this stuff. See, unfortunately, what I hear in that is that's video games, that's PC games. That's not what I remember about BASIC. But that's just me. So what I'm saying here in my video is really what I think we ought to do is, when I say it's perhaps unnecessarily complex, I mean I want us to move back to playing Dungeons and Dragons away from a video game style. And like my title of all of my video series, I want to get back to basic so that we can save our game. Save our game meaning back to the purest, the sweetest, and I would say the better way in which it was originally intended, the way it was originally designed. The way Gary says it in his quote, right? The way that the obvious intent of the game that it was originally created to be, and the way they originally played it. I want to ask us if we can get our game back on the rails again. I want to remove the politics and our world's messes, and I don't want to play what isn't reality, and it isn't us. You know, like Stephen Donaldson's Thomas Covenant series, or Poole Anderson's Three Hearts and Three Lions, Michael Moorcock's stuff of the same kind of types, right? I want us to get back to basic D&D. But listen, here's the thing. Ultimately, as I've said in all of my videos, whatever system gets more people into the game and playing, that's a good thing. But once you're there, folks, I would ask, investigate, listen, and search out, and see if there's something else out there that you can do to enhance the game for you, and then play it. Don't get caught up in all the minutia of buying the next big system or the next big thing, the next media-hyped gaming product with the next group of celebrities that are playing. You know, play what you've got, play what's given to you, especially your imagination, and enjoy that journey and tell great stories. Have fun, build relationships that's going to last for your whole life with it. Retain fun and exciting memories that are going to last your lifetime when you do so around the table or around the virtual table right now. I want to go back to the beginning, as Inigo Montoya says in his character story in Princess Bride. I want to go back to the beginning. So that's where I'm headed with this. Hey, listen, thanks for listening. If you like this content, please subscribe, give a thumbs up so you can help the channel. Please consider, if you really like it, to consider putting a tip in our PayPal tip jar. That's linked in this video as well. If you feel drawn to help us out during COVID, that'd be great. Share this with your gaming friends, your connections. As always, it's totally G-rated, so share it with your wife and your kids. I would say take a peek at some of Jim Murphy's videos as well as Bandit's Keep, as well as Professor Dungeon Master and Dungeon Craft. I will challenge you though and let you know none of those 3 channels are G-rated, but I will put links to these in my description. As always, anything that's not G-rated, I'm going to always tell you that, because I don't think that anything other than a G rating is necessary to have some great gaming and gaming system Dungeons and Dragons conversations, okay? But make sure and check them out if that's something you want to do. They got some good stuff to say out there and teach us about things that I'm saying here too. Again, thanks for listening. Take care, and you know what? May all your rolls be nat 20s. Have a good one.